Welcome, everyone, to the May 16th, 2022 Board of
Recording in
Aldermen
progress.
meeting. Would everyone please join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice. Here. Alderwoman Sims. Here. Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Here. Alderman Shelton.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval or amendment of the agenda. Do we have any modifications? Alderman Plufka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was my understanding when we met on a special session of the Public Safety Committee last week that at the end of that meeting, we made a specific recommendation. It was a twofold recommendation, unanimous from the committee, that the Board of Aldermen consider adopting as a resolution. I don't see that on the agenda, and I guess I would make a motion at this point to add to
Under new business?
yeah, number 11, sorry, that we add the resolution, which I can describe, but, you know.
Yeah, for any of those, so essentially, I was in the meeting also. Essentially, the resolution that was, that came out of, the recommendation that came out of the public safety, Alderman Plufka, I think, was, number one, to get approval from the board to authorize staff to continue with the increased policing over in Rosalie, Eulalie, Lewis, and Cecilia, and to also take whatever steps are necessary to look at the addition of physical tools to, as part of traffic calming. Is that somewhat, feel free to tear it up.
No. There were two recommendations. One was to place barriers that have already been purchased and
Okay.
are already, we already own, by Public Works in consult with both Brentwood Fire Department and Brentwood Police Department, so that we don't lose access to emergency vehicles in the process. And then secondly, that we continue with the additional police presence that has been going on since the inception, understanding that these officers may, as necessary, be paid from the Brentwood Police Department's overtime budget. And that was really the consideration on what we wanted the full board to consider. The committee debated
Sure.
it and talked about it, but we thought it was important for the whole board to consider that issue as well from that standpoint.
Okay, we've got a motion to add that to the agenda. I see our city attorney looks like he's wanting to say something.
In the absence of a resolution per se, perhaps what we should add to the agenda is a report from the chairman of the Public Safety Committee, and at the time, take it up as a motion
Oh, okay.
to be made by the chairman and considered by the board.
It would have the same effect if it was a resolution. Alderman Plufka, are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Second.
Second on
Motion to amend the agenda, right?
to,
Don't we have to put that as
I don't
an
think we need
agenda
to do
item?
that with, since it's going to be his report.
All right.
That's on the
Yeah.
agenda already.
Okay, so any other possible changes to the agenda? Any objection to approving the same by acclamation? Seeing none, it will be so approved. Thank you. That brings us down to item 4, announcements, appointments, proclamations, and recognitions. The first is American Society of Landscape Architects Merit Award. Eric, are you handling this? Great.
So I'm here to kind of present the first of what I think will be many awards for Brentwood Bound. The American Society of Landscape Architects gave Planning Design Studio, awarded them a merit award in the area of analysis, planning, research, and communications for their work on Brentwood Bound. Andy Fraking for Planning Design Studio is here. He's going to talk a little bit more about the award.
Great, thank you. Andy?
Mayor, members of the Board of Aldermen, thank you. Planning Design Studio is proud to present the St. Louis chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects Merit Award for the Brentwood Bound project to the city of Brentwood. The St. Louis chapter seeks annually to recognize excellence in projects that reflect the careful stewardship, wise planning, functionalism, context, execution, and the artful design of cultural and the natural environment. I don't want to take much of your time, but I would like to read one of the comments provided by the jury. And that comment was, "There's a lot to say about this project that's outstanding. Flooding, greenways, and community." And I think they meant flood control, not outstanding flooding, that they're happy to see it. So I want to make that clarification. So our firm would like to thank you for the privilege of allowing us to serve as your landscape architect on this exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess I can approach.
Oh, yeah. Take a look.
That's all right.
Over here. Not just me, it's you, you get this.
Thank you very much.
Next up under announcements is a recognition of significant professional achievement. Chief, you want to come on down, please? Fire Chief Ronnie Cottrell has successfully completed the process that awards the professional designation of Chief Fire Officer. The Commission on Professional Credentialing, CPC, met on April 5th, 2022 to confer the designation. Chief Cottrell becomes one of only 1,659 CFOs worldwide. The designation program is a voluntary program designed to recognize individuals who demonstrate their excellence in 7 measured components, including experience, education, professional development, professional contributions, association membership, community involvement, and technical competence. In addition, all applicants are required to identify a future professional development plan. The CFO designation program uses a comprehensive peer review model to evaluate candidates seeking the credential. The Commission on Professional Credentialing awards the designation only after an individual successfully meets all of the organization's stringent criteria. Achieving this designation signifies Chief Cottrell's commitment to his career in the fire and emergency services. Hold on a second, we're not done yet. We got more here. The Commission on Professional Credentialing, they got me again, has conferred upon Ronald Cottrell, designated April 5th, 2022, the designation of CFO, Chief Fire Officer, for demonstrating a high level of competence as witnessed by your peers, by documenting professional, educational, technical, and community service achievements, and fulfilling prescribed standards of performance, ethics, and conduct required for CFO. Congratulations. Finally, you still have something else. Proclamation, Emergency Medical Services Week. The State of Missouri proclamation in recognition of emergency medical services to designate the week of May 15th, May 21st, 2022 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the Brentwood Fire Department are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the Brentwood Fire Department has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine and access to telemedicine. And whereas the members of the Brentwood Fire Department engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week, now, therefore, I, David A. Dimmitt, Mayor of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th to May 21st, 2022 as Emergency Medical Services Week with the EMS strong theme, EMS Week, Rising to the Challenge. I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Presented the 16th day of May, 2022. Okay. That brings us into item 5, public hearing. We have 3 items under public hearing. And I will gavel open the public hearing for the first item, which is a public hearing on the conditional use and permit site development for the renovation and a 3,224 square foot addition for the Animal Protective Association of America APA facility at 1705 South Hanley Road. If anybody in the public cares to speak during this public hearing, now is the time to do so.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Papillo. I represent the APA. My understanding is the applicant usually speaks during the new business portion. But I think from a housekeeping and a legal perspective, that our remarks need to be part of the public record. So after consulting with Mr. O'Keefe, I'm up here to ask if perhaps what we say during the new business portion could be included as part of the public record in this matter.
Do we need any board action? Is that fine? We can just go ahead and, absolutely.
Thank you. I very much appreciate it.
Certainly. Anybody else care to speak during this portion of the meeting? With that, I will close the public hearing for that item. Next up is public hearing to rezone the property at 200 Hanley Industrial Court from the PD Plan Development Overlay District to the UD Urban Development District and Site Development Plan and Conditional Use Permit application for a new 273,659 square foot elevator apartment facility and a 26,604 square foot Planet Fitness facility. With that, I will open a public hearing for that matter. Again, anybody in the public cares to address or speak to that issue, now is the time to do so.
Mayor, Mike Doster, a member of the development team for the petitioner on that item. I would make the same request as was made with respect to item A, namely that our presentation remarks be made part of the public record.
They will so be marked. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, I will close the public hearing on that matter. Finally, we have a public hearing for a conditional use permit for Scissors and Scotch Men's Hair Salon located within the Dearborn's Brentwood Point Shopping Center at the tenant space addressed at 8432 Eagle Road. I will gavel open the public hearing for that matter. Anybody in the public care to address that? Now is the time to do so. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing on that. It brings us down to item 6, citizen comments. If anybody in the public cares to address the board, now is the time to do so. You'll be given up to 3 minutes, and you can speak on any matter. Nobody online either. Okay. Well, then we'll move on to mayor and alderman reports. First up, Mayor, I have no report. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Was this the, I
Yes.
wish I could say I was paying closer attention to our city attorney at the moment he said it, but is this the point in time at which I can talk about last week? Thank you.
It is.
I have broken my glasses today. I have done 100 other things, including forgetting my iPad for today, so I'm apologize to everybody for being so distracted. We did have a special meeting of the Public Safety Committee on May 11th. I want to thank the other members of that committee, Alderman Lockmuller, Alderwoman Sonny Sims, and Alderwoman Kathy O'Neill for making time in their busy schedules to attend that meeting. We were able to have a very good conversation, mostly because we had members of staff and we had members of our Brentwood Police Department and Fire Department and Public Works Department available, and they were very well informed and quite prepared to talk about the shutdown on Manchester Road and its impact in the number of days from the time that it was shut down until the time of that meeting on May 11th. After having a spirited conversation in which the public did provide their input, we did come to a point where we decided that we would like the Public Works Department to take some of the barricades that they have, the temporary barricades that they have currently already purchased and in storage, and deploy them within the areas of the congestion and the areas on the east side of the city, from Litzinger all the way into, other parts of the residential area of that city, as they see it as being effective to discourage cut-through traffic and to keep speeds down in those areas, and to work with the Brentwood Police Department and the Brentwood Fire Department in the deployment of those barricades. And then last but not least, we also saw that there's been an additional police presence that continues to this day from our police department. They continue to issue citations and to stop people who are traveling too fast or who are disregarding the signs as to local traffic and the like. And we wanted to continue that policy as well, knowing and understanding from the report we got from Brentwood Police Department that this may cause them to have to pay officers out of an overtime budget for 2022. We recommended that unanimously, and we thought, and I thought, that it would be appropriate for the entire board before this was implemented to get a chance to weigh in on both of those suggestions. And that's it.
Okay, so you're making a motion to that effect?
I would make a motion that we direct staff to use available barriers as decided by Public Works in consult with the Brentwood Police Department and Fire Department to place them within the neighborhoods so as to discourage cut-through traffic and to keep speeds as slow as possible, and to continue to recommend additional police presence, understanding that those officers, as necessary, will be paid from the Brentwood Police Department overtime budget.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we got a second by Alderman O'Neill. Any discussion on that? Alderman Weggie.
Yeah, Alderman Plufka, I appreciate you calling that special meeting. I thought it was quite timely and responsive to the concerns. I apologize, I was not able to attend in person, but I did listen in on the call. I support the motion. I would just like to, I guess, make a motion to amend it so it's not just the physical barriers that we have in place, but I want to make sure that we're clarified that when those temporary speed bumps do come in 8 weeks or whenever they happen to show up, that Dan and Public Works is empowered to deploy those per his discretion, with coordination with the police department, as well as the traffic monitor when we get those back from the 5G shop. I believe that should be deployed. Maybe you alternate between there and Strassner, just so that we can get some quantitative data. I have a lot of residents that are calling me with the counts from their front lawns, and I think some data here would be supportive. And I know that might kind of cock up some of the plans we have for that traffic monitor somewhere else, but I would say that our traffic patterns right now are not typical, and so I think that would be a good deployment of those as well. So I would offer that amendment to the original motion.
I would agree to amend my motion to include deployment of the traffic monitors as they become available to us, and to deploy the rumble strips as they are delivered.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a second as to the amended motion. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, let's do a roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yes.
Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Alderman Plufka, do you have anything else?
I do not. Thank you, Your Honor.
Sure. Alderwoman Tice.
No report.
Alderwoman Sims.
The reset Ways and Means May meeting will be occurring tomorrow night at 5:30 right here.
Alderman Weggie.
No report.
Alderman Gould.
Yes, the next Ward 3 meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 31st. I realize that this is day after Memorial Day, but please join us at the Rec Center for that meeting. I'm sure with all of the work in Ward 3 that we definitely want to have this meeting to make sure that we're hearing from residents. So please join us.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes, let's not forget down in that area, our local businesses. If citizens could please patronize the businesses down there, as difficult it is to get to, they're not getting the drive-by attention from the traffic down there, so let's make it a point to visit. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman O'Neill.
No report.
And Alderman Shelton.
No report.
Okay, moves us down to City Administrative Report. We have 2 items under that. First up is Brentwood Bound Update. Craig.
Good evening. Craig Schlitter with Navigate Building Solutions. I'll be going through the project expenditures since the last Board of Aldermen meeting. First is construction costs. Total spent since the last Board of Aldermen meeting was $452,736.98. Next is soft costs. $134,577.79 was spent on design fees, project management fees, material testing, utility costs, and signed materials for the groundbreaking. At the additional categories of funding, the only change was an additional rent check was received from Bowser House. That's my report.
Great. Any questions for Craig? Thank you.
Thank you.
The second item under the City Administrator Report is the YMCA Summer Camp Temporary Structures. Whitney.
Good evening. The YMCA has submitted a request for a special use permit for the temporary structures of these three large tents on their site for the duration of the summer. Staff has the authority to approve special use permits. However, since this was for the duration for the entire summer, whereas in prior it was for a single event for one day, something like that, I thought additional review should be was warranted for your consideration. So,
Do you need board action then, or are you just curious if there are any objection? Okay. Any objection to the placement of those temporary structures for how long?
the application says 82 days. And I
82
believe the
days.
Y representative was going to be, if you have any questions for
Okay.
her. So,
Well, does anybody have any objections? Yeah, Alderwoman Tice.
I just have one question. Presumably, if you have that many tents, there are a lot of children outside, and they're not really that close to the road, but, there aren't fences there that keep the children in. So if they were to go, I guess, to the south a little bit from where the tents are.
So there are 3 tents.
You could identify yourself.
Yes. My name is Lena Eierman. I'm the executive director at the Mid-County YMCA. So there are 3 tents, and we are discussing potentially putting up some kind of snow fencing or barrier right next to the tents if that becomes a problem. They are further away from the road, where we're putting them towards the back corner to keep them away from Strasner.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or any objections to the placement of those structures? Seeing none, I think you got a green light. Thank you. Brings us down to item 9, the consent agenda. We have 4 items. Are there any questions or requests to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Alderman Waggy.
Yeah, I would just like to ask some questions about the change order, which HOF. Not necessarily to come off the consent agenda, but since that didn't go through Public Works, just to
Sure.
get a little more information about it.
Sure. Eric?
So, yeah, this is basically a change order to add additional 2-inch empty communication conduit and in-ground concrete box. The reason to do this is IT department explained that the existing conduit can't be used if for whatever reason the city switches from AT&T to a different service provider in the future. And this will just save money in the future if that ever happens. So it's a preventative measure more than anything else.
So is this a result of IT getting involved with the cameras and the Wi-Fi infrastructure down there?
Yes.
And so they basically caught something of the original design that wasn't future-proof?
I mean, yeah, I don't know if the design was poor, it's just that they saw something that might be beneficial for the city later on.
Okay, and then the $5,000 savings is the estimate of what we think it would cost to run another conduit
Correct.
in the future, maybe.
At today's cost.
All right.
So that could go up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get that clarification. I do think this is a smart move to make, so we don't have to dig up the park.
Okay. Do you have any other questions about any items on the consent agenda? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Brings us to item 10, old business. We have one item under item 10, and that is Bill number 6386. Can we get a second read of Bill 6386 by title only, please?
Bill number 6386, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to execute the attached 2021-2023 Community Development Block Grant Municipal Housing and Community Development Supplemental Cooperation Agreement.
Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to perfect Bill 6386 into ordinance form.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to perfect. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yes.
Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Okay. By a vote of 8-0, Bill 6386 will become ordinance number 5017.
Great, thank you. Gets us down to item 11, new business. First up is Bill number 6385. Can we get a first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6385, first reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 135 of the Brentwood City Code relating to purchasing.
Thank you. Bola, who's presenting on this? Is it you, Robin?
Eric.
Eric. Okay.
So yeah, this is something that was brought to Ways and Means in 2019, and the idea was to kind of increase the purchasing limit throughout the city, primarily because of that $500 limit, which is the lowest possible limit that the city has. And so when you look at things like safety equipment, repairs, supplies, traffic calming devices, medical supplies, recycle carts, even things like mulch, all that usually is over $500. And so prior to actually able to make that purchase, you have to complete a capital item improvement form. It gets approved by finance director and the city administrator. Then it comes back signed. Then you can go and make the purchase. And it really just kind of slows down the purchasing process. It pretty much is, I think, throughout the entire city. I think every department, I would say this has become somewhat of a hassle, especially as we talk about raising prices with today's world. So this is why it was brought in 2019. It was approved by Ways and Means, but for whatever reason, it never got up to the board. So we brought this back to Ways and Means to kind of reaffirm that the limits were okay, that the reasoning was okay. Ways and Means approved it, and it has forwarded up to the board for your consideration.
Okay. Any questions? You're just doing a first read on this tonight. Okay, thank you. Next up is Bill number 6387. Can we get a first read of Bill 6387 by title only, please?
Bill number 6387, first reading, an ordinance approving an agreement for water facility relocations for the Brentwood Bound Improvement Project.
And who is presenting on? Dan?
All right. This one's pretty straightforward. If you looked at the little graphic that was attached to your board packet, there's a fire hydrant that's in conflict right now. It's on Mary Avenue. And if you follow the hydrant lead that goes across the page, it ties in exactly where Pendleton and Brazos meet. But that particular fire hydrant and lead will be in conflict with the destination playground. The new position for the fire hydrant is closer to the parking lot and the event lawn building off of Brazos. So this is to give Missouri American permission to go ahead and move that hydrant and get rid of the hydrant that's in conflict. There's no charge for this. They have a crew ready to go. If we do a first and second reading, we can give them the ordinance number and take care of it.
Any questions for Dan on this relocation of the fire hydrant? We would like to have a second read tonight as well, so could I get a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Mr. City Attorney, can we get a second read of Bill 6387 by title only, please?
Bill number 6387, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance approving an agreement for water facility relocations for the Brentwood Bound Improvement Project.
Chair would entertain a motion to perfect Bill 6387 into ordinance form.
Motion to perfect that Bill 6387.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and second to perfect. Any discussion? Roll call?
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yes.
Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Okay. By a vote of 8-0, Bill number 6387 will become ordinance 5018.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, under new business, is Bill number 6388. Can we get a first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6388, first reading, an ordinance granting site development plan approval for an office building at 241 Hanley Industrial Court.
Thank you.
Good evening. This project was initially reviewed on June 9th at the planning of 2021 at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then received a recommendation for approval at the July 14th, 2021 meeting. However, it did not proceed to the Board of Aldermen at that time. Site plan approval is valid for 1 year unless the Board of Aldermen extends that. So we are coming in just under that time frame before you tonight. The building is a new construction of a 14,845 square foot building with 4,265 square feet of office space, and the remaining space will be assembly at 6,823 square feet and a parking garage for 10 stalls. I believe the applicant is here. He is also requesting a tax abatement. However, that came in on Thursday late after the agenda, and then their financials came in on Saturday, so I have not had a chance to review that information.
Is the tax abatement part of the CUP?
This is just site development plan. This is not a CUP.
Okay.
It can be separate.
Yes, it's separate.
It's separate.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, well, we are doing just a first read of that tonight. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is Bill number 6389. I'm sorry?
I believe the applicant is here for the purpose of
Oh,
being heard.
to make a presentation?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, if the applicant is here, I'd like to address the board. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Brance Neal. I'm with Grimes Consulting. We prepared the site development plan. I wanted to thank the board for their time, but we had a few conditional approval things hanging out there. Some of those being the light temperature needed to be changed to 3,000 to 3,500 Kelvin. That got changed, and all that information is available on the lighting cut sheet. Additionally, there was screening required, as well as on the HVAC units towards the rear of the building. That has been addressed. Screening is to match the building. And then finally, there was a 4-inch pipe that ran from the property to the north onto our off our property. They used to be combined into one, and that problem has also been mitigated. That pipe has been called out to be grout filled as well. So that basically covers all the conditional issues that we had for approval.
That was addressed at the planning and zoning?
That was addressed on the most recent plan submittal
Okay, by staff.
by us, and then we
Okay.
send it in to,
Okay.
for review.
Those
So,
items were called out at the Planning and
Yeah,
Zoning
yeah,
Commission.
that's what I was getting to, yeah. Okay,
yes. So,
okay, great, thank you.
thank you.
Public comment on this? Is there not an opportunity for these?
No, there's not. That time passed. Actually, there is no public comment for this one tonight. There is a citizen comment later on in the meeting, if you care to. And the board's not going to act on this matter tonight, so they'll take it up at the next meeting, which will be June, sometimes the third Monday in June.
Would that be the more appropriate
Plenty of-
time for public?
Well, you can do it anytime you want. You can wait till citizen comment later on in the meeting if you want to do it then, or you can show up at the next meeting or Zoom in during the next meeting and speak to that.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, anything else on that on the 6388? If not, we will move on to 6389. Can we get a first read of Bill number 6389 by title only, please?
Bill number 6389, first reading, resolution authorizing the amendment of the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Thank you. Ola, Robin, who's handling this? Robin.
Good evening. Okay, good evening.
Good evening, Robin.
At the conclusion of the budget year, staff recommends a budget amendment. This amendment would be for fiscal year 2021, which ended December 31st, 2021. I have reviewed the financials for 2021, presented to Ways and Means last month. But overall, the finances of the city have managed to remain steady and stable as we continue to navigate the global pandemic caused by COVID. However, we do have a few expenditures that exceeded the adopted budget, and those were presented in a memo to you all. I don't want to spend time going line by line. Just high level. For the most part, all departments operated within their budget, but we did have some overspending that can be directly attributed to the increasing costs for goods and services that have historically remained fixed, such as solid waste disposal fees, petroleum fuel, and public works overtime expenditures. We also had an expense that ran over in administration due to professional services agreement that exceeded the cost. And the municipal operating had an issue as well due to short funding of a contract for information technology with the city of Clayton. We will be sure to present an expense that's more in alignment with that actual cost for 2023. And that's all I have.
Great,
Or any questions?
Great, thank you. Just by way of housekeeping, while it's on the agenda as a bill, in reality, this is a resolution, so we don't need a first and second reading on this. So we are going to ask that for a motion to approve the resolution for the 2021 budget amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries by a vote of 8-0.
Great, thank you. Brings us down to bill number 6390. Can we get a first reading of Bill 6390 by title only, please?
Bill number 6390, first reading, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into temporary construction easement, permanent easement, and sidewalk easement agreements between the city of Brentwood and the following properties: 9139 Russell Avenue, 9131 Russell Avenue, 8917 Russell Avenue, 8911 Russell Avenue, 8905 Russell Avenue, and 8829 Russell Avenue in Brentwood, Missouri.
Great, thank you. Dan, are you taking this?
These are pretty straightforward. These are all the easements as well as the sidewalk easements that we need for these shared use paths that are going between Bremerton and Brentwood Boulevard on the, what would it be, the north side of Russell Avenue. So we still have a parcel, I believe it's 17, that would be the strip mall area that's at the corner of Russell and Brentwood Boulevard. So these 6 are residential, but then you have the commercial property at the corner. That'll have to come at another meeting, but we're trying to amass these easements so that we can get together the right-of-way plans to MoDOT. So
Great,
that's
thank
what
you.
these are for.
Any questions for Dan on this? Alderman Gould.
On the commercial one, there's already a sidewalk there. Do we need to
It's
extend it,
going to
make
be
it what,
increased in
bigger?
width. Yeah,
And
it'll
that's
be
why we need it?
increased. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Alderman Lockmiller.
And Dan, these are just offers. We don't, they have to accept these offers, or?
They do, yeah, and there's this big gap in time between now and the next meeting, but in all likelihood, they'll accept these offers. I mean, you're not gonna change these a whole lot. These are all based on fair market assessments. You know, they've given them the derivation of how they came up with these values based on other properties nearby, so.
That's already taken place, this
Oh, our
communication?
Colin's met with all these folks.
Okay.
yes. Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Dan? We would like to have a second read on this bill as well, so can we get a motion to that effect, please?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion for a second read? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, can we get a second read of Bill 6390 by title only, please?
Bill number 6390, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into temporary construction easement, permanent easement, and sidewalk easement agreements between the city of Brentwood and the following properties: 9139 Russell Avenue, 9131 Russell Avenue, 8917 Russell Avenue, 8911 Russell Avenue, 8905 Russell Avenue, and 8829 Russell Avenue in Brentwood, Missouri, 63144.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to perfect Bill number 6390 in the ordinance form, please.
Motion to perfect Bill number 6390.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to perfect 6390 in the ordinance form. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yes.
Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Okay, by a vote of 8-0, Bill number 6390 will become ordinance number 5019.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Next on the agenda is Bill number 6391. Can we get a first read by title only, please?
Bill number 6391, first reading, an ordinance granting a conditional use permit and site development plan approval for the Animal Protective Association of Missouri at 1705 South Hanley Road.
Thank you.
Whitney Kelly on behalf of the city of Brentwood. As you may remember, earlier in this year, back in March, there was a text amendment to allow the use as a conditional use permit in anticipation of a needed expansion on the site. So this is actually now the CUP for that, and site development plan approval for that expansion. It is a 3,224 square foot addition. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval at its meeting on May 9th by a 7-0 vote. And all of the concerns for landscaping and site access, including widening the drive aisle for the fire truck, were addressed, and by allowing for some compact spaces, as the site has some nonconformities. And the applicant is here to make a presentation.
Okay,
if you have
thank
any
you.
questions.
Good evening, Tracy Papillo. I'm here for the APA. In speaking in support of the APA's application for a conditional use permit and site development plan will be Sarah Javier. She's the president and CEO of the APA. She's going to be talking about the background of the APA and the need for the project that's going to be before you this evening. Also, Amy Shearer, she is the project architect with Keeley Construction. And then I'm going to finish up just running through quickly the requirements for granting a CUP and why this particular application meets those requirements. Thank you.
Good evening, Sarah Javier, President and CEO of the APA. I want to thank you for having us here this evening. And we've talked before about the APA, but wanted to refresh your memories. We've been in the Brentwood community for 100 years at our Hanley location since 1947. We not only help the Brentwood community, but we help the region as a whole. Each year, we help over 4,500 homeless pets find their new families. In addition, we provide wellness services that help pets in our community be healthier. We provide educational programming for people of all ages, and that makes our community more kind and compassionate. We provide opportunities for volunteering and community engagement and serve as a resource when a stray animal is found, a person needs to find a new home for a pet, or when a family wants to add a new furry family member to their crew. We've managed to make our space work for many, many years, but we've reached a point where updates are necessary in order to continue providing the high-quality care to pets who need us, as well as to the Brentwood community. The updates that we're proposing will not only enable us to create better spaces for animals, but it will also make it possible for us to create efficiencies in our work, which translates to better and more safe and work environment for our team. It will also enable us to utilize new technologies and materials that improve the space and make it better for animals, our staff, our customers, our neighbors, and our community. The work that we do is governed by the Department of Agriculture, who ensures we're meeting their very strict standards for animal care. We also ensure that everything we do aligns with or exceeds best practices in our industry. The renovations to our building will make this much easier to achieve, as every element has been designed with this in mind. So next you'll hear from from Amy, who will talk a little bit about the building plan. And again, I want to thank you for this opportunity to share this project with you and ask for your support in moving it forward.
Mayor, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to present. As Sarah said, I'm Amy Shearer. I'm with Keeley Construction. I'm the design architect for the renovation. Do hopefully very quickly run through kind of what we're proposing. So first we'll talk about the site. As Whitney had mentioned, we did have quite a few nonconformities as far as our landscape easement, as well as access through the back or to the side of the building. We were not quite wide enough to allow a fire truck easy access, so our redesign with the landscape and the islands and the compact parking, as she had mentioned, will allow access all the way back with a 20-foot wide lane and turnaround space in the rear. As part of the updates of the the site, we're adding additional landscaping for the new islands, and then keeping the existing landscaping that has been very well designed and kept in good condition. We're just going to briefly go through some of the flat elevations. This is the existing front elevation as you see it from Hanley. As you can see, our addition roof is towards the rear is much lower than the high entry roof, so you really won't see very much of that from Hanley as you pass by. It's a very long building, so we have to kind of divide up our side elevations into two. This is the north elevation on the east side of the building. So the only change that we're making there is we're adding a portal to make the wayfinding into the veterinary clinic much more easy to find. However, that will be within the extent of the existing sidewalk and canopy that's there. Towards the west side, also on the north facade, this gives you a look of what we're proposing on the addition. Currently, the entire building is 1 story, except for the front entry. We're proposing on adding a 2nd story to the tune of, I think what we said was 3,200 and some odd square feet. And that will house the offices to allow for more space for surgery suites, better storage, and better spaces for the care of the animals. This is the west elevation as you would see it. We are showing obviously new access with a metal overhead door. We will have a covered area for dog walk area. Once again, we see the offices above. And we'll talk very briefly about the materials when we actually go to the renderings. That'll be a little more easy to understand. And this is the east view of the second-story addition. So this space not only is going to be used as offices, but will also be used for after-hours events, for perhaps when they're doing fundraising or other types of engagement with the community. So we have a very nice covered outdoor terrace that is obviously safely enclosed with a metal and glass railing, and also, allows outdoor access for the employees during break. As we come around the building, this is the south facade. Once again, seeing our addition and the existing building. And then this is the east end of the south elevation. This is basically what you would see from the parking garage, but basically existing as it is, no changes on this face. So here are some color renderings of the existing building with the addition. So this also sort of shows our modifications to the site. So you can see our new islands with landscaping. You can see our canopy with the portal that kind of defines where the clinic entrance is. And you can see the addition at the very back. I have here, if I may approach.
You could just start down there. Thank you.
This is the proposed palette of materials. The existing main front facade is an EIFS system. We are not going to be using EIFS for the addition. We're going to be using a smooth-faced cement board siding, which will be complementary in color to the existing color scheme. And that is a rain screen system that will be over an insulated wall that will help for both, obviously, climate control, but also sound. This is kind of a better view as you kind of come around of the addition with the warm white, smooth-faced cement board panels, aluminum storefront system, and you can kind of get a better, and we also have a different material as a highlight in the balcony area, which is a wood look cement board system, which also is part of the rain screen system. This is the view looking south. So this shows an existing door, and then the addition, obviously, kind of over the top of part of the existing building, and then we're rebuilding basically what is currently a metal roof shed area that currently covers some storage and an outdoor dog walk area. And then this is the view from the west, or at the west facade, I should say. Once again, showing the system, our overhead door, and our covered dog walk area. So I'm going to go back just quickly. One thing to notice about our addition and the building itself is that our adjacency to the south is a parking garage. To the north is a fairly large parking lot, and then a hotel that's fairly far away. And then on the west side is the Metrolink. So we don't have a lot of close neighbors. That being said, I know sound was an issue, partially because I think there was some bad experiences with the watering bowl a little further down on Hanley. So, I wanted to point out, of course, that we have slightly different adjacencies than there, but also we are definitely making some effects to reduce the amount of sound that we have. So if we want to get into the technical aspects of this, basically we measure sound transmission by a coefficient called STC, sound transmission coefficient. They assign numbers to how loud something is. So and that STC defines an assembly. So a wall or a roof or something like that, with all its parts and pieces put together, can either allow sound transmission very easily or prevent it from passing. And so a low number on the STC means that sound passes very easily. A high number means that it blocks sound very well. So on the upper right hand of our screen here is the existing construction of the covered area that we will be rebuilding with the addition. So that existing construction is basically just a single apply roofing over a metal deck, no insulation, no construction otherwise. As far as the roof goes, that's an STC of 28, which is pretty poor. Obviously, that allows a lot of sound to come through. The walls are 8-inch concrete masonry. They're reasonably good. You can still hear loud speech, but it wouldn't be audible. With the new addition, our roof structure will be much more non-sound transmissible. Not only will we have the metal deck and the membrane, but we will have 1.5-inch metal deck, 3-inch polyiso insulation, bat insulation, and acoustic tile ceiling interior. That gives us, at the bare minimum, an STC 56, which, when we look at our chart, means that loud sounds we're somewhere between loud sounds being faintly heard and very good soundproofing. That does not include the intermediary floor structure, which would only even more decrease the amount of sound that transmits out. Our walls are going to be constructed of 6-inch metal studs with gypsum on both sides, cavity insulation, continuous exterior insulation, and the fiber cement board rain screen. That should give us an STC classification of 49 to 54, which is better than where we were with the original construction, and once again gets us to a place where loud sounds are barely heard. So hopefully that can, at least ease some people's minds about the amount of sound in addition to the, gosh, can't think of the word, adjacency of the surrounding buildings. And I think with that, we have Tracy.
So as I'm sure you're aware, the grant or denial of a CUP is governed by Section 400.670 of the Brentwood Code. The language is mandatory in that the Board of Aldermen shall approve a conditional use unless it finds that the application and evidence presented clearly indicate that the proposed conditional use will have certain adverse consequences that are enumerated in Section 400.670. I think the key fact considering this request, and one that plays a role in almost all of the criteria that's looked at in the code, is that the current use has been there since the 1940s. And because the APA's use has been part of the Brentwood community for over 7 decades, and given the relatively small addition, the 3,224 square feet, I think that the evidence clearly establishes that none of the enumerated negative impacts set forth in Section 400.670 are present. So going through those quickly, the first item, the grant of the CUP will not increase traffic hazards or congestion. It's not anticipated that the renovation will impact the number of employees or visitors. It will not increase fire hazards. That's pointed out in the staff report. I think that there will be a safety inspection prior to, or as part of the building permit process. It will not affect the character of the neighborhood. The APA is actually part of the character of the neighborhood and has been for over 70 years. It will not have a negative impact on the general welfare of the community. In fact, it does have a tremendous positive impact on the welfare of the community. And I think we told you this last time when we were here on the text amendment, some of the great things that the APA does in the Brentwood community. 1,013 adoptions to Brentwood residents. The APA brings customers to Brentwood businesses. Its on-site wellness clinic provides affordable veterinary care to Brentwood residents. The APA provides programs to Brentwood senior communities. 108 Brentwood residents volunteer, and it provides shelter to strays in the community. Often they'll have police officers and Brentwood residents who bring in strays so that they will not be on the streets. The grant of the CUP will not overtax public utilities. The additional 3,224 square feet will have little impact. Compliance with all other applicable provisions of the chapter. If you looked at the staff report, the site is pre-existing, so it does have some existing nonconformities, but this site plan reduces those nonconformities, or it doesn't add any additional nonconformities. And of course, as I've already talked about, it will contribute to and promote the community welfare and convenience at this location. It does have a tremendous positive impact. It will not cause injury to the value of the neighboring property, given that the APA has been at this location for 70-plus years. You just cannot anticipate that there will be any negative impact on the surrounding property. It also complies with the city's comprehensive plan. It's in an area that particular lot is designated public and semi-public land, and the comprehensive plan provides the public, semi-public land use category includes uses that provide public services and facilities to Brentwood's residents and businesses, and that's certainly what the APA is doing. The 10th factor has to do with erosion control and on-site stormwater detention. Per the staff report, that's just not applicable in this case, and it will be compatible with the surrounding area and thus will impose no additional burden and have no negative impact on the surrounding or adjacent uses or on community facilities or services. Again, like I mentioned kind of at the beginning, the fact that they've been there for 70 years plays a major role when considering all of these factors. I would also like, so I'm respectfully requesting that the board pass the proposed ordinance. And also, going back to like this idea of the public hearing, I need to put in certain, or at least I feel I need to put in certain records into the public hearing record. So for purposes of the record, I'd like to put in the application for a conditional use permit that we filed, the staff report dated May 11th, 2022, the PowerPoint presentation that you saw this evening, Chapter 400, Article 2, Division 6 of the Brentwood City Code, that's Section 400.630 through 400.720. Chapter 400, Article 2, Division 9 of the Brentwood City Code, that's Section 400.1050 through 400.1130. And I'd like to put in the Brentwood Comprehensive Plan. Thank you. And I have copies of those exhibits for you.
One thing I did want to point out is on the site plan, the UD district has a 15-foot side yard setback. However, it does state that the Board of Aldermen may reduce that to 5 feet if the adjacent properties were reviewed as part of a site development plan. The existing building is 5 feet, so they are maintaining that. That is shown on their site plan. I just forgot to mention, this was discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they did not have an issue with that. But I did want to make sure that that was clear before you tonight.
Okay, thank you. And just so the board is clear, I've already spoken with Whitney about this, but I just want to make sure the board understands. This matter did not go to a separate site plan meeting with planning and zoning. As Alderman Plufka and I know from serving on P&Z for 10 years, that's normally how it would happen, but there's a new process or procedure in place. Is that right, Whitney? Would you like to tell the board of why it did not go to, it did not have a separate site plan meeting?
Prior to my getting here, the deadline to get on the Planning and Zoning Commission was 10 days prior to the meeting, which the code requires notification 15 days prior. And it didn't allow staff time to get under contract with the landscape architect or the traffic engineer if that was needed. So therefore, the first review at the Planning and Zoning Commission was always considered just informational because they could not act due to it not being properly noticed. So everything went to the site development plan. When I started, I was like, well, let's move it back a month so that staff would have the time to do their initial review, get the landscape architect and the traffic engineer on board if needed, And then if it was a simple review that could be approved at one meeting, then it can move forward quickly as opposed to the delay of going to the site plan subcommittee and then back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So in this instance, all of the issues were able to address prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So any design criteria that they wish to review could then either be approved that night or be referred to the site plan subcommittee. However they chose. They didn't have any issues, so they chose to move it forward.
Okay,
So-
thank you. So it was considered that P&Z did review the site plan. They just didn't send it to the separate meeting. Is that fair to say, Whitney?
Correct.
Okay.
They felt there was no issues. Landscape architect provided a review and didn't have any concerns. Traffic didn't really have any concerns, so a traffic impact study was not completed. And the discussion on the drive aisle occurred prior to the meeting, and so therefore was discussed within the staff report.
Okay. Alderman Lockmuller.
Whitney, you were mentioning earlier the side setback reduction. I'm kind of used to some of our other zoning, you'd have to go to a variance, apply for the variance for that. But under the UD, I guess that falls with us.
Correct.
And the mechanism for accomplishing that, just the passage of the site plan?
Correct. And passage of this conditional use permit.
Okay, conditional use. All right, thank you.
And there's no rationale?
Well, since it was all addressed as part of the staff report, I did not do one except for what is in the heading within board docs. I could provide one at the next meeting if you wish.
No, I'm just,
Okay.
and this is just new to me, and to not have the rationale, and I just want to make sure it wasn't left out, or, if it's, that's fine. Alderman Plufka.
Well, my concern, I have two concerns. One is that the revised site development plan was received May 9th, so clearly no input from planning and zoning prior to tonight, correct? On the revised site plan.
No, hold on.
It says it was received May 9th.
Oh, the meeting was May 11th. So there was back and forth between me and Amy
Okay.
regarding the drive aisle and making sure there's 20 feet and the use of allowance of the compact parking spaces in that area. So we had already discussed that. It was just the hard copy that's stamped in the file was received May 9th.
So subsequent to planning and zoning on May 11th, they revised the plans that we see here tonight.
No, what you see here tonight is what was submitted, what was shown. That is the final plan, yeah. She emailed it to me, it's dated May 6th, because she emailed it to me May 6th, but the hard copy was received May 9th. So it's and P&Z was on May 11th. So it's the fourth item, APA site plan received, revised site plan received May 6, 2022.
Okay, so the first line of your background says, petitioner recently received approval on April 18th. What was that approval for?
That was to allow for the use, to include the facility as an animal rescue shelter and adoption with related provisions as a conditional use within the UD district.
Okay, so this has been to planning and zoning precisely once.
For the site development plan, it has.
Sure.
For the text amendment, that was reviewed and recommended approval and approved at the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, so out of that meeting on the 11th, were there any changes recommended whatsoever?
No.
And there were 7 people there?
Yes.
How
Well,
big is
yes.
planning and zoning?
I
We
know that.
added
It's-
4
It's
members.
13.
Okay. And so could you go through the explanation one more time? You said that the mayor alluded to a new plan having to do with taking the reality of differences in notice requirements between, I guess, between site plan and between a regular planning and zoning meeting?
So yes, so prior to my arrival and in previous planning and zoning, the application deadline to get onto the Planning and Zoning Commission was 10 days prior to the meeting,
To get on the agenda,
to get on the agenda.
okay?
So the first meeting was never properly noticed because noticing had to go out 15 days prior. So that was just a presentation.
So
of
you're
the
saying
re-
that every notice of planning and zoning is flawed in that same way?
It's not flawed because it would, on the notice, it has when it was first reviewed, site plan date, site plan subcommittee date, and then a second Planning and Zoning Commission.
But any applications that applied to be on a planning and zoning meeting less than 15 days prior to that planning and zoning meeting, in your mind, that would be, it wouldn't be anything you could take up on an official basis because it's less than 15 days?
Correct. So that's why they never acted on the first meeting. It was always referred to a site committee to get through, to get the landscaper, architect on board, to get the traffic review, and then it was always referred back for action to at the following meeting.
I served for a
Yeah.
decade on planning
Oh,
and zoning.
sorry.
I know the process pretty well. So please, what I'm trying to understand is you point out that there's a discrepancy in the notice of 5 days, and yet the solution is to simply skip site plan.
No, the solution was I had moved the deadline submittal to the Planning and Zoning Commission to a month prior so that we had time to do of all of our pre-review for the first meeting. And if there's still issues at the first meeting that they wish to continue to the Site Development Subcommittee, they can, or they can continue it to the next meeting, or if there was no issues that they felt needed to be discussed, it could be moved forward to the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, so this is the point of my confusion. It sounded to me like when we first talked about this, the fact that this didn't go to site plan was somehow tied together with this notice discrepancy, but it's not.
It's not.
In this case, it didn't go to site plan because no one on planning and zoning recommended it go to site plan.
Correct. We were able to do all of our staff review and get it addressed as part of the staff report, so therefore the P&Z did not feel the going to site plan subcommittee was necessary.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I see a hand up over here, no? Alderman Weggie? No.
No, that's my pensive pose.
Okay. I see a hand over here, no? Okay. I guess that's it then. Okay, no other further questions? Great, thank you so much. And we will move on to the next item. And we will have a second read for, at the June, it's the third Monday of June. 20th, thank you. So thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next up is Bill number 6392. Can we get a first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6392, first reading, an ordinance authorizing the rezoning of 200 Hanley Industrial Court from PD Plan Development Overlay District to UD Urban Development District and granting site plan and conditional use permit approval for a 256-unit apartment complex and fitness facility.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Whitney Kelly on behalf of the City of Brentwood. So this application has actually been before you before. There was some concerns regarding making the text amendment changes to the Plan Development Overlay District, so they resubmitted and decided to resubmit and as a text amendment, I'm sorry, as a rezoning and conditional use permit under the UD district. So the traffic engineer is available on Zoom if you have any questions, but that was reviewed and discussed at the May 11th meeting. It was initially reviewed at the April 13th meeting. And all of the landscaping was also discussed, and it was revised in the submittal before you tonight to meet with the intent for the reduction in parking that's being requested as part of this application.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
The applicant did make me aware that there was an error in their application. The application had that it was a new 273,659 square foot elevator apartment. That is actually what the application was actually, but all of the drawings indicated 277,000 square feet. So we would, at the next meeting, look to revise the ordinance to indicate the correct amount, but none of the drawings were ever changed. So it was always shown on the drawings, but the application just had an incorrect square footage.
Okay. And so similar situation, so, but the site plan has been reviewed on this more than once,
Correct,
April 13th and May 11th?
right.
Okay,
They chose not to send it to site plan subcommittee and just continued it to the following Planning and Zoning Commission for review.
okay,
Mostly the concern was over the traffic impact
okay,
and waiting for that information.
okay. Great. Do we have any questions about this? Yes, Alderman Lockmuller.
I guess somebody was going to talk about parking, because depending on what report you read, I'm not sure what the required parking space number is on this.
So Lee Cannon is available for questions, but they can also address that as part of their presentation. The required parking, they're asking for a reduction of an average of 1.5 spaces per unit, which the board can approve due to substantial landscaping, which the landscape architect reviewed and indicated that he felt it met with that intent. And then the square footage for that's actually in the first staff report for the May 13th. The Planet Fitness facility requires an additional, and with the amount of parking they are provided, it is actually, with the 1.5 reduction, they are overparked. Where is that? They have an excess of parking of 71 spaces should you approve the reduction in the parking.
Anything else?
No. Can we hear from the applicant?
Sure,
Your Honor.
absolutely. Absolutely. The applicant,
They have a PowerPoint?
yeah, you want to come on down and give us, I guess, similar presentation what you did last Wednesday? Sure.
I have this on. I have it on here.
You have it on there?
Okay.
Mayor, members of the Board of Aldermen, my name is Mike Doster. I am the land use attorney on the development team for the petitioner. There will be two other speakers besides myself this evening. One is Josh Barkus, who is with Stock and Associates Consulting Engineers, and then you'll hear from Jeff Mugg of Cornerstone Brentwood LLC. He will speak to architectural items, including the proposed elevations. I'd like to give you a little bit of history on the project from a procedural standpoint so far. On January 10 of this year, 2022, we applied for a text amendment to the PD district and intending to apply for a CUP if the text amendment was approved. We came before the council, you may remember that, and some concern was expressed about doing a text amendment that might apply universally across the city. There was also some questioning of why we were going this route as opposed to rezoning to UD, Urban Development District. The request for text amendment was postponed indefinitely, I think. It may still be pending and ultimately would be withdrawn if we're successful in rezoning the property and obtaining the other approvals that we're requesting. On February 9, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the text amendment, and it came before you, and of course, I just explained what happened when it was before you. We then went back to the drawing board, so to speak, and decided to file a petition to rezone to the Urban Development District and for a CUP. And the reason we had to apply for the CUP was we had a structure, a proposed structure that exceeded 2 stories or 35 feet in height. And we were also proposing a use in this development that was a conditional use in the Urban Development District, namely the health club gymnasium use. On May 11th, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning, the conditional use permit, and the site development plan. Briefly, this proposed development is a mixed-use development located at 200 Hanley Industrial Court. The property itself is 3.62 acres. It's currently vacant. The Planet Fitness square footage, as cited in the proposed bill, is 26,604 square feet, and the square footage for the apartments is 277,025 square feet and 256 units. And as Whitney pointed out, we would ask that you amend the bill to correct those numbers with respect to the square footage of the apartments. It appears in two places, once in the whereas clause on the first page and later on in the bill when it's talking about conditions. So two places where that number would need to be changed. And just to put it in perspective, there's about a 1% difference between the number that was in the application and the number that is actually represented in the plans that were submitted with the application. So it's not a significant difference. The building height that we're proposing is 6 stories and 75 feet. There are parking reduction factors that have to be taken into account in considering whether to grant a reduction. And we have submitted a parking study that shows that the development will not require a parking ratio greater than 1.5 parking spaces per unit. Our parking study shows 1.47 spaces per unit is actually needed to meet peak demand. That amounts to 377 spaces. What we're actually providing is 455 residential spaces, which is a total of 588 total spaces, including the parking for the Planet Fitness use. The city's traffic consultant has looked at that study and has indicated that the project has sufficient parking as planned. We also have to show some outstanding site features to justify a reduction. We will include heavily landscaped front yard, a sidewalk for public use, a naturally landscaped bioretention basin, and natural grasses to preserve the rear of the site. Initially, at the first meeting of the Planning Commission, the consultant for the city indicated that perhaps we hadn't provided enough landscaping. So again, we went back to the drawing board and presented revised landscaping at the second meeting of the Planning Commission, and the city's consultant was satisfied that we had provided justification for the reduction in that respect. There are factors to be considered with respect to the conditional use permit. According to the city's traffic consultant, no anticipated increase of traffic hazards or congestion. We work with the fire department on a site plan that will provide a special fire truck access to provide for truck circulation, and the fire district is satisfied with that. The project will bring over $94 million in investment to the area. This is a significant project, and we believe it will strengthen the character of the neighborhood and positively impact the general welfare of the community. There is sufficient infrastructure existing or to be built to provide sufficient utility service to the project without overtaxing public utilities. And we intend to comply with all other applicable provisions of the zoning code. We do not plan to apply for any variances, but we do intend to apply for a comprehensive sign package. Other factors, the redevelopment of the property to an exercise facility and multifamily housing option promotes community welfare and convenience. The substantial investment will positively impact neighboring property values. The project is compliant with the city's comprehensive plan. The natural landscape bioretention basin will be built on site. The development will complement the surrounding area and is therefore compatible and will not have a negative impact on adjacent uses or community facilities. At this point, I would ask Josh to come up and give his presentation. What this slide presents are the issues that were addressed when we were before the Planning Commission. Remember I said that at the first Planning Commission meeting, there were some issues identified that they wanted us to address, which we did, and the Planning Commission determined that we satisfactorily addressed all of those issues, and I'll let Josh take you through the detail on that. Do you have any questions for me before I step down? Thank you.
As Mike said, I'm Josh Barkus with Stock and Associates, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. The final items that we were addressing at the last Planning and Zoning Commission are listed above you here. One was to the increased landscaping to meet the needs for the parking reduction that we were looking for. Two of the items, one from the landscape review architect is one from the traffic engineer hired by the city, CBB, related to site triangles and site distance study. The site distance study was more related to the southern entrance. If you're trying to make a left out onto Hanley Industrial Court from the small parking area we have for the Planet Fitness, we want to make sure we could see far enough down to the right to the stop sign to make sure that they can see cars coming to make a left. So our plans do include a site distance study for that, showing that there is adequate clearance over the existing wall and landscaping's pulled back so that they can safely make that turn out of the site. Part of our request here is regarding the fire access lanes that we're showing along the site. Right now, the edge of the pavement is 4 feet off of the eastern edge of the property line and 4 feet off the northern edge of the property line. The city's code requires that the parking lots require a 5-foot landscape buffer in between there. These areas are just for emergency access, which we will sign and stripe according with the city's requirements in conjunction with discussion with the fire district. These are only meant for fire access to be able to respond to an emergency that might be taking place at the building. The other piece of the improvement was, or one of the conditions was regarding an existing tie wall that's out on site. We're still tracking down whose tie wall this is and whose infrastructure it's holding up. But in either scenario, if that infrastructure can be removed, we will remove it. If it has to remain, we'll remove the tie wall and place back a wall that's made of similar materials of the building or that existing retaining wall that runs along the street there. This is just showing the existing conditions of the plan. So to our west and our south is Hanley Industrial Court. To our north is a light industrial existing building, and to the east is a grass slope up to the Metrolink rail. The site generally drains 1/3 to the south, 2/3 to the north, and we will be meeting those watersheds, even though they're tributary to Black Creek and Deer Creek down to the south of us, where all the Brentwood bound work is taking place. We still need to stay within the pipe systems that exist so that we're not surcharging any of the system as the development takes place. This is a colored copy of the site plan showing that we will continue to utilize and widen the southern entrance off Hanley Industrial Court. That leads up to a small parking area that would be at the frontage of the front door for the Planet Fitness facility. All the remainder of the parking for the Planet Fitness facility as well as the residents would take place in the garage off of our 2 western entrances. In between the western entrances, there's a small canopy to the entry of the building. We have some, as you'll see on the landscape plan, some score pattern for a way to get across into the public sidewalk and down some steps. And we've added the site triangles that had been requested to make sure that we keep any landscaping and any signage that may be part of that sign package out of there to keep clear views for the folks coming out of the facility to get onto Hanley Industrial Court. We're showing a small bioretention facility on the southeast corner of the site. This would be part for water quality, part for our stormwater detention, and the remainder of the water quality and detention that we would be required would take place below ground, and that would be generally located in the drive aisle that flanks the western side of the building before it ties into the existing public storm sewers. This is just a copy of the site distance profile that we've provided, and it's real small to see up here, but the top shows that line of sight from one car to the next coming out of the southern driveway. And this is a copy of the landscape plan. So you can see that it's heavily landscaped along both street frontages and around the building, specifically on the south, wrapping around to the west side. There's 21 total canopy trees, 3 evergreen trees, and 1,140 shrubs, grasses, perennials, annuals, And that includes the plantings that would take place in the bioretention facility as well. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jeff Mugg to speak to the floor plans as well as the architectural elevations. Thank you.
Good evening. I guess I'm wearing a couple hats tonight. My name is Jeff Mugg. I'm with Delmar Properties, and I'm part of the development consulting team, fee consultant working with the ownership group. But I'm also with St. Louis Design Alliance Architects. So I'm going to put my architect hat on here for just a moment and talk about the architecture. So you're looking at the ground floor plan. Two entrances to a structure, garage structure to the north, and Planet Fitness, Fitness Club to the south. Might add that the ownership group is doing this entire project. They've got it all, the apartment piece of the development as well as the Planet Fitness. I think at last count, they own all of the Planets in the area, by the way, all 15 clubs in the greater St. Louis area. And I believe there's several more in the pipeline, this being one, so they're kind of excited about coming to Brentwood. The Planet Fitness itself is a very tall two-story volume, to the point that the parking structure next to it to the north is three levels of parking. And then there's another level of parking below the main structure, so 4 levels of parking. And as we go up on top of what will be a concrete podium deck, we'll find the first floor of the apartments themselves. 256 units. I believe I've got that number right. It's been fluxing 1 or 2 as we've been working on this. This main level, the first level of the apartments themselves, is where you'll find all the apartment amenities. So clubhouse, support interior spaces. This is a highly amenitized apartment development. So the clubhouse, obviously lease offices, but beyond that, lounge facilities, bistro type facilities, all the pool and ping pong and all those kind of things indoor, and then of course an outdoor amenity deck with pool, pavilions, play space, that kind of thing for the residents. All of that happens on this level. I do believe that we have a couple amenities on the next level up, but you're going to see 4 stories of apartments on top of that podium deck. So six stories total when you think of 2 for the Planet Fitness, 4 for the apartments. I'm going to skip these. Those are boring. I'm going to go to this one. So this is an idea for what the exterior will look like and the rendering. The materials, which are on a board right down here.
You can't, go right ahead.
It's brick,
While you're
it's
talking, you go right
brick
ahead.
and cement siding, cement panels, just like the earlier project. It's the material of the day. But a lot of ins and outs with the building, a lot of brick. These panels, either a hardy panel or Nichiha, it's a fun word to say, just another type of cement board panel that's sort of in vogue these days. And there's a sky lounge, if you can see that. I don't know if I can point. Can you see that pointer? I don't know if you can see that mouse running around there, but in the back, there's a sky lounge that would be another amenity available to the residents to hang out if it's just available, or plan events up there, kind of looking over Hanley Road toward Lowe's, etc. There are some raised canopy elements that have glass around them. Again, I don't know if you can see the pointer circling around there, but right at that front corner, those are uninhabited spaces, so they do go above beyond the 75 feet, but they're just uninhabited decorative elements to add interest to the building. I do want to back up, if I could, and look at something on these elevations. As Mike mentioned, we don't have a comprehensive signage package for you this evening, but the signage is pretty important to our applicant. And if you all did have any comments you would want to share about the signs, about the signage that's shown on this, we would appreciate hearing it, because it's a very, very important component. So you'll see on the elevation from Hanley, that's sort of the primary sign. They would like to get a Planet Fitness sign up there. This, to give you a sense of size, that is less in size than the size of the Marriott Spring Hill Suites. It's not as large as that sign, a little bit smaller.
And then you'll see, I'm going to go to the rendering as you can see them from here. Just over the garage door, the main entrance to the Planet Fitness, they'd like to get a sign over there. So again, no, we don't have anything in front of you this evening, but know that's coming and know that that's a really important component to our applicant. Here's just another view, slightly different angle. You can see it there again, just talk about signage. You can see the sign over the front door now of the Planet right over here. We really have limited parking on the front of the building, the at-grade parking. There's like, what, Josh, 11, 12 spaces, something like that over there. That's all of the parking is actually underground, protected, kept safe with cameras, et cetera, et cetera. We think it'd be actually a nice plus for this particular club. I told the owners if I was picking one, I was equidistant between two of them, I'd pick this one because I can park inside and get in and out of the club. I think that's it. That's a quick overview. Any questions on the architecture for me before I sit down?
Alderman Lockmiller.
Not so much the architecture, but is the development group going to be the final management group?
Of the Planet Fitness, yes. They manage, they have a full organization, staff, et cetera, for the management of the Planet Fitness. Randy Lipton, the Lipton Group, which is now called Evolve, I believe, is their new name, is our operational manager for the apartments.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any additional questions for the applicant? Alderman Waggy.
So 256 units, do we have an estimate of how many residents we think this would, based on the mix of 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom? How many people we're looking at? I know it's a swag, but.
Boy, I would really be guessing. That's such a question for the folks at the Lipton Group. Have we heard an answer to that, Mike, at all? Has that question been asked? I don't think we have. Yeah. Why don't can we hold that one and I mean, get something to
a follow-up, based on the mix of 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, I just wonder because of other conversations we're having, is there a model that predicts how many kids would possibly be living in this? And have you talked to the Brentwood School District as well to make sure they understand the impact of this coming through?
So that question has been asked, and that actually has been posed to Evolve. And as recently as just a week and a half ago or so, we were on a call with them asking that very question. We're waiting for an answer on that, and I think the intent is to get that back through Mike to Whitney. So if we can get you an answer on that, that'd be great.
And then basic timeframes, assuming everything is approved. When would construction? What's the estimated opening of this? When people will start living there?
So we are still in a position. If we had a second reading in June and it had that entitlement piece behind us to start construction drawings, there's a possibility of still beginning construction toward the end of this year. I'd say more likely, for sort of St. Louis area, sometimes you can start in the middle of winter and you're just great. But I would say a closing somewhere in there, likely construction start between sort of, let's say, December and end of February, early March. And then this is about an 18-month construction project. So we're told by the general contractor.
Yeah, and not a question so much as just kind of a thought is that, I think we, the city, would have to think about infrastructure if this does go, because I don't think there's a good walking way to get from here into kind of the rest of the town and the rest of the amenities, right? It definitely is kind of focused going over the Hanley. So just kind of a thought we might have to think about that.
Yeah, I might add to that one of the things that we think is significant in terms of the project and its visibility as you're coming down south on Hanley Road, you are going to see this building hovering above the MetroLink. It'll have a presence. And we think we'll sort of continue what you've been developing along that Hanley Road corridor in a very positive way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, this fits the comprehensive plan. I'll tell you the views from inside of the neighborhoods is going to be significant as well, because you can actually see the ground that this will be built on from the neighborhood. So it's gonna be a big part of the skyline. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Plufka.
Yeah, just a question about the emergency access. You talked about basically in that northern corner where you've got emergency access fire department access is what I'm assuming, for that corner. Has that been discussed at all with our fire department? Have they, okay, and they've signed off on that? And so they're pretty confident that, I know we don't have equipment to fight a fire in a 6-story building. I mean, I know we mutual aid with other communities, but that turn can be negotiated right there at that northern corner?
That is correct.
Emergency vehicles?
Sorry. In our original submittal, and we didn't put it in this slide, is we had auto turn exhibits that we had shared that used the fire truck dimensions that they gave us to make sure they could get in and out of there. And then we also looked at one of the important things to them for the residential use was where the last window was on the building, and that's kind of what set the end of that road to allow their 100-foot ladder then to be able to get to that windowsill.
Okay.
We had originally measured from the front of the truck, but the ladders come off the back. So you lose about 40 feet there at the beginning, and that's what set those.
Thank you.
Sorry, so Whitney pulled
Thank
this
you.
up here.
Yeah, so if you look in the packet on their site
Yep.
development plans on sheet 3 of 18 is showing the truck turn access and use of the fire lane back there. And then here you can see the ladder truck to the top of the tower at the end of those, right in there on the next sheet. That was reviewed and approved by the fire department.
Anything else, Alderman Plufka? Alderman Lockmuller?
Was your name Josh?
Yes, sir.
Josh, on the parking, you're asking for a reduction of 71 spaces. I noticed you're going to have 59 EV spaces in that. That's within the garage? Is that true?
Yeah, we'll put those EV spaces inside the garage, for sure.
When you look at an EV space, I mean, that's a great thing, but when you look at an EV space and you're saying you need a 71 reduction, does a typical person without an EV car drive by those, and do those usually remain empty except for an EV user? And is that factored in the calculation for what you need in parking?
They're required by the city. The EVs are required.
It is. There is an ordinance for the required amount of EV parking spaces to provide. I'm not certain that I drive by enough of them to know how often that they're empty. But you're saying that even with those, we're still at a surplus in parking.
Who requires, what ordinance are you referencing
Yeah.
there?
That was the ordinance 4994 that was passed in December that required 10% EV-ready spaces and 2% of that 10% to be EVSE installed as part of it.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, once again, those 59 spaces, I don't see you filling 59 spaces consistently with EV cars presently, maybe in the future.
We don't either.
Yeah, it sounds like overkill.
Yeah, and to the point, if there's an opportunity, and to look to our attorney over here, but yeah, if there was an opportunity to do less or plan for more, we would much rather do that. You'd appreciate the fact that we are in a situation here from a parking standpoint. We can't be short on parking. We can't. We have no place else to go. And the last thing that we would want to happen is we'll call it 60 EV spaces and discover that now we're short because we don't have that many people driving EV cars.
Because if somebody doesn't have an EV car, I mean, if they park in that spot, I guess, they might get keyed, I don't know.
Right.
But you can't really, there's no legislation that says you can't park there.
And we're in new territory, and it is private. It's a private development, so I don't think it's treated like a handicap space where you could get a ticket, so. Yeah.
Okay. And then I got one.
Go ahead.
For city attorney. I see all in this ordinance, there's rezoning and there's site plan approval. Since they are asking for some changes that the board can do under UD, do we need to really separate out the rezoning from the site plan in two different ordinances? Or is this all done simultaneously?
I'm not troubled by doing it all in one legislative act because they're correlated. The site plan depends upon the zoning being enacted with the allowances that allow the site plan to be adopted. So I see the relation, we can certainly, there can be a motion to sever the two legislative acts, and we'll come back with two pieces of legislation, but I'm okay with it.
All right.
Alderman Shelton.
I have a question, and this might be better for Whitney. I can't tell on the plans, but driving by, there's on the southeast corner, there's an existing Hanley Industrial Court sign. Who owns that and maintains that, and are you aware?
We're not certain, but we did actually speak about this with Mr. Frankie's review of the plans, and that the landscaping and the things around it would need to be, we'd need to reset it and put some landscaping around it, which I believe is what shows on the landscape plan, though it's very small.
Yeah, and I know this might be part of a larger discussion, but the sign is very old and weathered, as I'm sure you're aware. And I know there's been some discussions about maybe renaming the whole area and something like that, but maybe as part of something that I'd like to see us kind of look into that and figure out I just look at this beautiful building and we have this old weathered sign sitting there, and I know there's
Certainly.
also one on the south side that wouldn't be on your property, but just maybe
Part of
something.
that would be through the title review. If there's easement for that signage, then we obviously would have to allow it to exist within the easement with the rights that it would have.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Anybody
Mayor,
else?
Mayor Dimmitt.
Yeah.
And I think it would be of benefit to consult with the leadership group for the Hanley Industrial Court. I'm sure they can provide some sort of insight on that as well.
Alderman Gould.
Yes, I have two questions. One related to signage, and I know you're not necessarily offering up a plan right now, but you asked for feedback. I'm curious on why there wouldn't be signage to promote the apartment complex, either on the Hanley Road side, or on the other side of the renderings didn't necessarily show that. I'm just curious because, you're going to have multiple signs. Obviously, people won't say that that's a full Planet Fitness.
Yeah, that's a good question. To the point, that's why we don't have a comprehensive signage package for you this evening. It hasn't been entirely thought through. And in order to get that package to you, it needs to be comprehensive, right down to the detail and the lighting, et cetera, et cetera. And we're early in the design stage here and weren't prepared to do that. But yeah, expect to see some of that.
My other question is related to the water management. It's good that you have the bioretention area, but this site does cover a significant part of the property, and I'm curious about, so the parking garage underneath, is that taking on all the water coming off of the main structure of the building, or how
No,
is that?
so the
being
way,
managed?
so the top roof of the structure, which would be the roof of the apartment buildings that cover all the Planet Fitness and the garage area, all of that will be piped and brought down into the detention system. And that's where all the rainwater that falls on the
That's
roof will
under
go.
the parking garage? or
No,
where?
no, from above. The parking garage all goes to sanitary. And there's no flow within there, so it's not an open structure that we're trying to keep water out of. And that's a requirement by MSD, because all the oils and things that drip off of cars within a garage, then it goes through an interceptor, a sand oil interceptor to pick all of that up before discharging into the sanitary system itself. So all of the runoff from the roof will be caught in roof drains, just like a typical flat roof building, brought down the exterior walls, and then we'll bring it underground within the building, and then brought into the detention system, where it'll have an underground structure to attenuate those flows.
Okay, and we've had people experts look at that and make sure that there's enough to capture that, and it's not adding to the streets or anything like that.
Absolutely. So we did a conceptual review through MSD, which basically we turn in all of our calculations and pay a fee, and they do research that you normally couldn't just get through emails to spend time on it, and come back with all the criteria that you have to meet. And so the criteria they came back with for the stormwater management is that we have to assume this is a back to grass. Well, it's grass today, but before 2000, or before a couple of years ago, it was pretty heavily developed.
Right.
So we don't get to count any of the existing impervious that was there. So our post-developed flow rate for the flood protection events, the 200 and 100-year storm, will have to be below what the grass runs off today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you on the 20th. Yeah, Brings us down to bill number 6393. Can we get a first read by title only, please?
Sir? Bill number 6393, first reading, an ordinance granting site development plan approval for modifications to the exterior of the building and site for the Veterinary Emergency Group, a 24-hour emergency veterinary or animal hospital at 2101 South Brentwood Boulevard.
Great, thank you. Whitney?
Good evening. So this is the former PNC Bank at 2101 South Brentwood Boulevard. The applicants are representing a veterinary emergency group that will provide a 24-hour emergency services for a vet for all animals. They are enclosing the drive-through canopy that's on the existing building, and they are removing the drive-through lane on the south side that circle around the building to create excess green space. The landscaping was reviewed, and it's mostly fill-in, and that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And there was an extra detail that some of the detail that's not shown up on the drawings was asked to be carried around to the new facade of the enclosed canopy structure that's just plain brick, and they agreed to that. So therefore, it was recommended approval at 7-0 at the May 11th meeting. And the applicant's here.
Great, thank you.
If you have
wanna
any
come up
questions.
and
So,
Perfect.
okay.
Good evening. Brett Dahlman from Quattro Development. We're the owners and developers for the property. Also have Jennifer Hanlon from Veterinary Emergency Group on Zoom. I will give you a brief rundown and explanation of what we're intending to do on the project, and Jennifer's available to answer any operational questions. And she has a really nice PowerPoint that kind of describes their service altogether. So if you're interested in that, we can have her do that. As Whitney mentioned, we are looking to renovate the existing PNC Bank for the Veterinary Emergency Group. And I'm going to start by showing you the exterior elevations. We are, sorry, you just told me that and I didn't do it. We are enclosing the drive-through along the western side of the bank property. The remainder of the exterior of the existing bank will not change. The intent for that enclosed area would be a storage area for the vet clinic. This is showing the north and east elevation. Similarly, the south and west elevation, you can see we are enclosing. The intent is to use same color brick. It's shown a little bit faded for the existing, but that's just to kind of tell the difference between existing and proposed. From a site perspective, all of the areas shown with the crosshatch on there are either pavement or sidewalk to be removed. Along the north side, along Pine Avenue, we are removing one existing parking space. That is a comment from the city consultant due to the site triangle viewing from the intersection of the street. Removing a little bit of sidewalk in front of the building on the north side to create a handicap accessible ramp. And then removing in its entirety the pavement along the west and south side of the building. That will be, I didn't want to do that. The area that we're removing the pavement on the west and south, we will be adding in 4 parking stalls directly north of the drive-through enclosure, or the former drive-through enclosure. The remainder of that area will be restored back to grass area. It'll be used for a pet relief area, get the dogs out there to run, exercise, whatever they may need to do. I mentioned we are adding handicap accessible ramp on the north side, and we are adding in one single parking stall at the southwest or southeast corner of the building. The grading on the site will mimic existing drainage patterns on site. We are reducing the impervious area on the site, so it should be a benefit to the drainage. But again, all existing drainage is being maintained. From a landscaping level, the parking stall along Pine Avenue that we are removing, we are replacing a missing boxwood shrub and replacing a dying boxwood shrub. In addition to that, we will provide landscaping around the perimeter of the former drive-through enclosure. I think we're going to use some kind of evergreen and boxwood shrubs there as well. With that, I would like to turn it over to Jennifer, and I will bring up her presentation. She can give you a quick overview of what they do and how they do it. Jennifer, are you available?
Auditor to panelist.
There we go. Hi, Brett, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, fantastic. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hanlon. I'm the Director of Real Estate and Development for Veterinary Emergency Group, also known as VEG. I appreciate the board's time in hearing this matter. Wanted to quickly introduce everyone to who VEG is and what we do. We are a nationwide group of emergency and urgent care hospitals for pets. We currently operate 29 locations coast to coast, with plans to have another 20 locations, including this one, open by the end of this year, and about 30 locations opened by the end of 2023. As you can imagine from our name, we are an emergency only provider, providing the communities that we operate in with a dedicated time and hours emergency only service. So unlike a typical general practice that might do wellness visits, spays, neuters, vaccines, we're there to treat, emergencies that happen in the community during the daytime as well as after hours. All of our locations do operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Essentially from the day we open our doors, we do not close to the public. Brett, if we want to go to the next slide. Great. Wanted to walk everyone through what a visit to VEG looks like and what the experience is. If you've never been to a VEG, it's a very different experience than you would have at another emergency veterinary clinic or your general practice. Essentially, when you call to speak to a VEG team member before you come in, we only operate on walk-ins. We do not take appointments. You get to speak directly to a veterinarian who can answer any questions you might have and advise you on next steps. This is a very unique opportunity for our customers. There is pretty much nowhere else or any other business in the United States that you can call and speak directly to a doctor at any hour of the day, and they will advise you if they believe you are having an emergency. When you come into a VEG, you then get to stay directly with your pet for every step of their treatment. This is something most customers have never experienced, but we always like to compare it back to if you have a child and you took them to the pediatrician or you took them to the ER. The doctor would never separate you or your child. And that's the same type of experience that we provide our customers at VEG. If your pet is getting stitches, you can stay. If they're getting surgery, you can watch. One of our spikes is finding a way to say yes to the customers and the community that we operate in. If your pet is hospitalized overnight and you want to FaceTime with them, yes. If you're hanging out in the daytime at the hospital and you want to sit on a beanbag chair, yes. We are a very customer-focused business, and everything we do and the way our hospitals are designed and operate are focused on the customer and the pet's experience there. We also collaborate with our customers' primary veterinarians. We work very closely with all the general practices in the communities that we operate in, so that we can make sure that records are being sent in time, and there's a lot of cross collaboration between our doctors and a patient's regular general practice doctor. Brett, if we want to move on to the next slide with some photos of our hospitals. So all of our hospitals are equipped with the newest veterinary technology. We have our own radiology suites, surgery suites, and in-house diagnostics. And these are extremely boutique build outs. We import our flooring from Italy. We have custom cabinetry throughout all of our hospitals and exposed ceilings so the hospital feels wide and open. Brett, we can go on to the FAQ page.
Wanted to run you guys quickly through some common questions that we get. As I have mentioned, we provide a dedicated emergency service. So think hit by car, vomiting, diarrhea, your dog ingests something crazy, respiratory distress, any other type of injury. We do not perform routine care such as vaccines, spays, or neuters, nor do we provide any type of preventative care. Is there overnight boarding? We do not board. The best example I can give you in the human world is that there is a vast difference between being hospitalized overnight in a hospital and staying in a hotel. Veg is the pet equivalent of that hospital. If an animal is on the premises overnight, it's because they are being hospitalized and they are under direct inpatient supervision by a nurse and a veterinarian. We, of course, also do soundproof all of our hospitals. We operate 29 of these across the country, and we have yet to get a noise complaint. This is a freestanding building, so while that is not an issue, I will say that most of our current operating locations are in larger centers where we are next to other operating tenants. All of our hospitals are designed to address the need for extra noise insulation, whether that be in the walls or sound batting on the exterior of the walls or on the ceilings. And then what kind of animals do we treat? I'd say about 90% of our patients are cats or dogs, but then we have a few small household animals such as rabbits and guinea pigs, and then of course your birds and reptiles. And that's essentially the entire presentation. We do go into a little bit more about our noise, odor, and waste mitigation and just some reviews from our customers. I will say that Veg is very excited to bring our use to the Brentwood community and to operate here and be able to provide the people and their pets of the Brentwood community with a dedicated daytime and after hour service. I do appreciate everyone, hearing our case tonight, and I'll hand it back over to Brett.
Thanks, Jennifer. With that, we'll open up to any questions that you might have.
Do you have any questions? Alderman Lockmuller.
Brett, one of the suggestions that was made at P&Z was breaking up that north elevation on the drive-through. And I know the individual's an architect by trade, and I don't think he meant to put some bushes there.
Yeah, exactly. We've agreed to go above and beyond that. That will be handled during our construction document preparation.
Well, would you be able to bring a rendering to the next meeting that would illustrate that?
I think we can definitely do that, yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
Whatever we do, it would mimic the existing building.
I'm sorry. I would just suggest that being on the north side, the other sides could probably stay blank that no one sees, but this faces Pine Avenue, which is a residential street.
Alderwoman Tice.
I just want to clarify, you mentioned that most of the buildings that you already have are in, it sounds like slightly more commercial areas than potentially this one, and this does abut homes. Could you talk a little about whether you have other places that abut home, and if there have been any issues with odors or noise from either concerned owners in the middle of the night or barks from dogs?
Sure, I'd be happy to address that. Well, a large number of our portfolio are located in, I would describe as slightly more commercial areas. We definitely do have quite a few locations within our portfolio that abut residential neighborhoods. I'd say probably the one that first comes to mind is our Denver, Colorado hospital, which actually happens to be one of our top 5 volume hospitals in our portfolio. It directly abuts a very large residential neighborhood, and we have never had any issues. Unfortunately, most pets that are coming into our facility are sick or injured. So by the nature of their visit to a veg, they are unfortunately not making much, if any, noise, especially the ones that are hospitalized, because they are extremely sick. If you are having your pet hospitalized overnight, it's because they physically cannot go home with you. And at that point, most pets are not making much, if any, noise. We don't have any type of odor issues. We actually pride ourselves as a company on being a facility that you walk into and we don't smell like a typical veterinary hospital. That's because we address all of that in how we design our HVAC system, as well as the cleaning protocols that we have within the facilities. In terms of noise, we do a survey on every site to try to combat noise as much as possible. And as mentioned before, we have never had a noise complaint from any of our neighbors before.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Me. Oh, sorry. Just to address Lockmueller's question, the architectural detail was added as a condition in the draft ordinance before you. It's item number 3, which says the architectural detail of the existing building shall be carried through to the enclosure of the former drive-through canopy structure. So that is included. The applicants have indicated that they would like a second reading, as P&Z did not have any concerns with the project, but that is your decision.
Okay, the applicant would like to have a second reading tonight. Is the board interested in making that motion? I don't think they're interested in doing that tonight. Doesn't hurt to ask, but okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, we will see you on June 20th with the landscape renderings, right?
Revised elevation.
Revised elevation, great, thank you. Thank you. That brings us down to Bill number 6394. Can we get a first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6394, first reading, an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for 2,229 square foot tavern and cocktail lounge, Scissors and Scotch, a men's hair grooming, salon, and bar.
All right, Whitney.
Good evening, Whitney Kelly on behalf of the city of Brentwood. This is an application that it's a hair grooming salon that includes a bar, so therefore under the ordinance as a conditional use permit that requires taverns and drinking establishments for CUP, which is why we're here tonight.
Okay.
The applicant is available on Zoom if you have any questions,
Okay.
but as they are leasing a tenant space within the Dearborn Point Shopping Center next to the subway, there's no changes to the exterior of the building or the site. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval at a unanimous vote, 7-0.
Does the applicant wish to, not that they have to make a presentation, but are they wanting to make a presentation to the board? You know,
He said, yeah, he would be available.
available for questions, or does he want to make a presentation?
Unless he's.
He's available for questions. There wasn't much of a,
Okay, yeah, do we have any questions for the applicant from the board? Alderman Waggy.
Just a clarification, so it's a haircut place, hair care. I guess the saloon aspect of it, I mean, is the intent that people are just visiting that, not getting their haircut? Is that what that is? I mean, is it really a bar, or is it, I've seen other business models where you just drink a beer and get your hair cut.
the applicant indicated to me that it was there for the patrons of the hair service, but they could, I guess, if someone wanted to come in, but that, I'd let the applicant indicate that if he's available.
Whitney, I don't know, are they signed up under you?
It should be under Phil Doherty. He's
There
not.
is no one out there.
If someone could hit the raise their hand function and let us know if you're available.
Just W. Kelly, which is you, and someone else that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're waiting for an answer on that. Do we have other questions? Okay, we will wait to see if we get an answer. If not, then we will get that answer, I guess, by the June 20th. Alderman Waggy, do you have other questions, or is that the only? That's the only one? Okay. Any other questions for this applicant? Okay, well then we will plan on seeing them June 20th. Thank you. That brings us down to item 12, citizen comments. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Now is the time to do so. You'll be given up to 3 minutes. Yeah, just come on down, give your name and address, please.
My name is Brance Neal, Grimes Consulting, 12300 Old Tesson Road, Suite 300D. I guess I would need a point of clarity. I was under the understanding that we were coming here today to get approval from the board, as the P&Z, we had been through 3 times, and they had recommended it for approval as long as the conditions were met under their comments. And 5/9, I returned a comment letter to the city for that, and I just wanted to get some clarity on that.
Okay, well, this is a public comment where you just, it's not a question and answer.
My apologies.
No, that's okay, I understand you. I don't know if the city attorney, are you able to respond to that or not?
I'm not even sure what project that is.
I'm
What
sorry,
side of it?
clear to launch,
Bill
241.
6388.
41 in handy?
Yeah.
It's on the agenda for first reading.
Okay.
I suppose if your request is that the board reconsider and to see if someone wants to make a motion for second reading, you could make that request.
Okay. Would that be I apologize for taking this time for that.
Well, I guess we'll open up. If anybody on the board wants to make a motion to have a second read on Bill 6388. No, they're not interested. We'll see you.
My apologies.
Nope, no apologies necessary. Okay. Anybody else in the public care to address the board? Okay, well, with that, we do need to go, I am making a request to go into closed session pursuant to RSMO 610.021 subsection 1, subsection 2, and subsection 3. Can I get a motion to that effect?
So move.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims. Yes. Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Alderman Shelton. Yes. Motion carries.
Great, thank you. If we could just go ahead and reconvene since we've got some people waiting for us, that'd be great. If you need to take a break, go ahead, but better make it fast.